Okay, so quick and easy one. It's just how to set up a basic DHCP pool config on a Cisco switch. nothing too fancy. So just to quickly go over this, I've kept the topology simple, straightforward. Single VLAN, single subnet. It's VLAN 10, 192.168.0.0.24. And I have a Windows device, Windows 11 device, which doesn't have any IP address on it at the moment. And we need to set up a DHCP pool on this Cisco switch. This should also apply to Cisco routers as well. In the description of the video will be a script that you can use to reference to create your own little copy and paste script of a DHCP pool. That should just work. So let's get cracking with this config, and I'll show you how it's set up. So first thing that we need to do is create the actual pool itself. So IP DHCP pool, and then give the pool a name. So in this case we'll just call it data. Then we have to define the actual IP address range. So we do that with the network command, and then we type in the range that's actually going to apply to the DHCP pool. So in our case it's 192.168.0.0. Now you can choose whether to use side notation or subnet mask. So you leave a space and you can do side notation of /24, that will work. Or you can use subnet mask if that's what you prefer. Either one will work. So that's a subnet that's been configured. The other point to note with this is when you configure in multiple pools, or even just one pool, and using VLAN segregation, the subnet of the pool must marry in with the subnet that's on the VLAN, and then whichever ports are associated to that VLAN, the clients will get IP addresses from that pool. So for example, with VLAN 10, in this case having the IP address 192.168.10 on this 192.168.0.0/24 subnet, any clients that you wish to get a IP address from this pool must be attached to a port that is associated with VLAN 10. Otherwise they won't get an IP address from that pool. So once you've defined the network range, then we can go ahead and define some of the other configs, such as the DNS servers. So I'll just use, like, say, Google's DNS servers. You separate multiple servers with just simply a space. So the first server and space followed by the second server. Then we actually need the default gateway, which is they define as the default router. So in this case we'll just make it the actual switch's IP of 192.168.0.10. So that's the next bit. So far we've done the actual range, we've done the DNS servers, we've done the default gateway. One of the other little ones that you can do is you could the lease time as well. So let's just do the lease time. So it goes in either infinite, or you can do a number of days followed by a number of hours followed by a number of minutes. So let's say this would lease it for 7 days. If you wanted to lease it for half an hour, it would be like this, so 30 minutes and so forth. So we'll set it for, say, 60 minutes, which is 1 hour. Oh, it only goes to 59, so we need to go 1 hour here. So that'll set your lease as 1 hour. If you want to define NTP servers as well, to be pushed out to your clients, you can do that via option 42, which is your NTP, and then you can define the NTP server with one of these options, so something like IP, and we can give the IP of the NTP server. So you may wish to turn the switch itself into an NTP server which clients can associate with. So 192.168.0.10, which is the IP of the switch. And you can define multiple NTP servers as well if you had another NTP server to refer to. So that's the next one done. Server. After that, the next step would then be to define which addresses you want excluded from your DHCP pool. Now you don't do this within the pool, strangely enough, you do this within the global config. Why, I don't know. I would expect you'd do it in the global config because then you'd exclude it from that pool. But, sorry, I'd expect you to do it within the config of the pool, but no. You have to come out and go into the global config instead. And it was IP DHCP excluded addresses, and then you just define the range starting with the low IP through to the end of the range, which is the high IP. So in our case we have .10 statically assigned to the switch's VLAN. We don't want clients picking up that IP, so client address 1, high IP address say 10. So that will be the first 10 addresses excluded, well 1 to 10 excluded from being assigned to any devices. To verify config, show run pipe section DHCP. So there's your excluded addresses, your pool name data 00/24, your DNS server, the default gateway, which I've put as the switch, the NTP server, which I've defined as the switch. You've got a lease time of 1 hour. 0 days, 1 hour. To view the bindings, so this is like the DHCP leases. Show IP DHCP binding will show you the bindings. And currently we've got a device that's actually been leased an IP of 192.168.0.1. Which appears to be, I believe, the Windows client. Address table, not the interface, sorry, what am I doing? The address gig 00, which when we come back to our topology, yeah, gig 00 goes down to this Windows device. So this Windows device, a client has already picked up the IP 192.168.0.1. Let's go over to that Windows device and let's verify that config. Make sure that's all gone on as it should have. So we can come over to the Windows device, config 192.168.0.1. For some reason the default gateway hasn't gone on, so we can have a look at that. The DHCP server, as you can see here, when you do is 192.168.0.10. So that is the switch's IP. So we know that that's where it's come from. It's not come from anywhere else. So let's just take a quick look at the config of the switch. Just to see why the default gateway hasn't gone on. I think it might have to be an IP other than the DHCP server that's actually been assigned. Let's just try that. Okay, let's just release and renew that configuration. There we go. Now let's put the gateway on, which was strange. Not 100% sure why it prefers a different IP to the DHCP server itself. Maybe it's a thing in Windows, I don't know. But 0.1 I've configured as the gateway, and then I could just configure and set up another device that uses 0.1. But hopefully that should cover a few things for you if you're not too sure how to configure a DHCP pool. I'll add this script into the description of the video so you can use this as a reference point. One other quick point to note, if you want to create reservations for these devices, for some devices like Windows devices, you have to get the MAC address, the raw MAC address of the device, the physical address, when creating a reservation, and you have to prepend the MAC address with 01, which will show you which will be the client identifier for that device. But not all devices use that same client identifier. I do have another video that I'll link in the description for setting reservations for devices that use client identifiers, if you need to watch that. If you take a look at the DHCP binding, you'll see here the client hardware ID address. This is the client identifier, so it'll be the MAC address of the device itself, but with a 01 at the start here. And then there's other devices that have much more complex identifiers, such as these ones, for example, where getting the client identifier is a little more tricky, which is what I have the other video for. So hopefully that helps, and that's done.